Good morning. We're going to talk about the new Utah exemption law this morning. There's been a lot of confusion, not just among parents, but also among school districts and health departments, and pretty much everybody is just kind of winging it and shooting from the hip. So I wanted to explain what the law actually says so that we understand what our rights are and so that we can be prepared to explain to people who don't understand what our rights are. So let's start with, where can you find the law? If you go, the code that applies to this, to immunization, vaccination in Utah is 53G-9-303. So if you can write that down, 53G-9303 with hyphens before and after the 9. So to find this law, you go to le.utah.gov, and you can find a whole lot at le.utah.gov, so make sure you go there a lot. The next step is to search by title, chapter, and section. The next step is to scroll down to 53G, and then click on Chapter 9 and click on Part 3. And that will give you links to all the different sections of immunization law in Utah regarding school children. So the next question is, which legislative interim committee handles this issue? For those who don't know what a legislative interim committee is, there are committees that meet on a monthly basis throughout the year. We have a 6-week session for the legislature, but they meet and work on things throughout the year. And the meetings that they have monthly are called interim committee meetings. So the interim committee that deals with this issue is the Health and Human Services Committee, to find information on meeting times, locations, and agendas, and to listen to past to archived recordings. You go again to le.utah.gov, and then you go to Health and Human, click on committees, le.utah.gov, click on committees, and then go to the Health and Human Services Interim Committee. Now that will change during the session. During the session there will be a Health and Human Services in the Senate and in the House. But right now it's a combined committee, and it's the Health and Human Services Interim Committee. So we're going to le.utah.gov, committees, which is up near the right corner, Health and Human Services Interim Committee, then you click on the date of the meeting that you're interested in. So if you're interested in the June 20th meeting, which is the one that we just had where we were discussing this vaccination exemption module, then you would you would scroll to that date. And then you need to decide if you want to look at the agenda, if you want to look at the minutes, or the audio. It says audio, video, but I've never seen video for a committee meeting. Video is usually on the floor. So it'll be audio. And then there are also bills that are going to be discussed that day. So that's how you can find out about the interim committee meetings. And it's good for you to be there at these interim committee meetings. They cover a lot of information, and most of it has nothing to do with what you came for, but it's good to be there when they're talking about something that you did come for. So now you know how to find the law, you know how to participate in the meetings. Let's talk about what the law says. So what kinds of exemptions are available in Utah, and what is the advantage of one over another? We have 3 exemptions. We have the medical exemption, the religious exemption, and the personal exemption. The medical exemption is only useful really if you've already been injured. So you don't want to count on a medical exemption. If you ever hear that they're going to mandate vaccines for everyone except for the people who can get medical exemptions, then you want to run screaming, because the medical exemption is almost impossible to get, and you have to already be injured. A lot of times they won't even give it to a sibling of a child who's been injured, severely injured by a vaccine. Religious and personal exemptions. The religious exemption has been changed so that it no longer is connected with your own religious belief. It is, well, no, I'm sorry, let me say that over. It is your own religious belief. It is not connected with your church beliefs. In Utah, having a religious exemption, as it used to be, where you had to have your church actually say that they opposed vaccinations, having that kind of an exemption was pretty much useless, because we have a lot of LDS people, we have a lot of Catholics, and we have a lot of Protestants. I don't know any of those churches that have come out against vaccines, and yet the law said that you could only get a religious exemption if your religion specifically opposed vaccines. So now the religious exemption is separated from your religion, and it's your own personal religious beliefs. And then there's the personal exemption. And the personal exemption is personal. It's whatever if you feel like any vaccine or all vaccines are bad for your family, then you just get a personal exemption. And neither the religious nor the religious or personal, I've got political on the brain, needs to be explained to anyone. If you want to get a medical exemption, you have to do the module, and you have to go to a medical doctor and get a paper written from a medical doctor that says that you need a medical exemption. Apparently, all of these require either the module or a visit to the health department. So that's the deal. Okay, so we're going to talk about the module and the health department in a minute or two when we get to the section on how to get an exemption. So who needs an exemption? When do you need an exemption? And why do you need an exemption? You need exemptions if you're going to attend public or private school or preschool, daycare, any of those things in Utah. You need it kindergarten, preschool, if you're going to preschool, then kindergarten, renewed at 7th grade, and then if you're going to a new school. If your child has already registered and has an exemption on file, leave it alone until another one is required in middle school. There is nothing in the law that says that you have to get a new exemption. And I'll read that to you in just a minute here. So some of the school districts, Alpine School District, for example, has just sent out a notice to all of their incoming kindergartners and probably 7th graders. I don't know. I know about a kindergartner that says that they have to renew the exemption they got just a couple of months ago that was accepted. Their child is already enrolled, and they're being told that they have to get a new exemption. They have to do the module. Nothing in the law says that. The law says that the exemption is good until these points, or if you do these things. And it also says that an exemption is good for 2 years from the time that you get it. So let's read from the code what it says about exemptions. Okay. Now, I'm actually reading from the enrolled copy of HB 308, which is the same as the code, but I don't know if the line numbers are going to be exactly the same. So in the enrolled copy of the code, this is line 254. It says vaccination exemption form, these are in the definitions, means a form described in section 53A 113025 that documents and verifies that a student is exempt from the requirement to receive one or more required vaccines. So that's what an exemption form is. In the case of this kindergartner, they have submitted an exemption form. It was approved and the child was enrolled, and now they're asking them for an additional form. So let's see, we're going to go to line 291 in the enrolled copy of HB 308, 291. And it says, a student qualifies for a personal exemption from a vaccination required under section 53A 11303 if the student's legally responsible individual, usually a parent, provides to the student's school a completed vaccination exemption form stating that the student is exempt from the vaccination because of a personal or religious belief. Or it could also be a medical exemption. That's further up, but that's not the point that I'm trying to make right now. A vaccination exemption form submitted under this section is valid for as long as the student remains at the school to which the form is first presented. So in the case of this kindergartner, the form was first presented at this school, and it should still be good at this school because the student is not changing schools. If the student changes schools before the student is old enough to enroll in kindergarten, the vaccination exemption form accepted as valid at the student's previous school is valid until whichever happens first. The student enrolls in kindergarten or turns 6 years old. If the student changes schools after the student is old enough to enroll in kindergarten, but before the student is eligible to enroll in grade 7, the vaccination exemption form accepted as valid at the student's previous school is valid until the earlier of the day on which the student enrolls in 7th grade or turns 12 years old. So if the student changes schools after the student is old enough to enroll in grade 7, the vaccination exempted form accepted as valid at the student's previous school is valid until the student completes grade 12. So it doesn't sound to me like you even have to get one if you change schools. I would highly recommend printing this out. You can go to le.utah.gov and look up HB 308 from 2017, and you can print out the enrolled copy, or you can go to the Utah Code, and you want to write this down too, 53G-9-303. So 53G-9-303. And I would recommend just printing this out and keeping it in your car. So if you're going to the school, you have it, and read through it and underline the parts. Like, you know, I've got notes in the margins, and I've highlighted the parts that I thought were pertinent to this discussion today. Okay, so through 313, I think we got to that already. Okay, so if you already have an exemption, please don't go renew it. Print this out, take it to the school, and show them that the law says that an already accepted exemption, an exemption already in force, only needs to be updated at kindergarten if you were in preschool and you already had an exemption, at 7th grade, or in some cases if you change schools. And that, and the most important part that I didn't read to you here is that the form is good for 2 years regardless of all of the other issues. So once you have that form that you've received from taking the education module, it's good for 2 years. So I would just know this stuff. And then when you go in, you talk to them and you just say, this is the deal. Okay, so who needs an exemption, when and why? K and 7, and sometimes if you're going to a new school. Okay, now you do not need an exemption if you have had natural exposure or can demonstrate that you have the titers that supposedly show that you're immune. So you can do a titer test. Let's talk about natural immunity. Natural immunity is what you get when you get the illness yourself and recover from it. And then you have natural lifelong immunity, which is far preferable to having to keep getting booster injections. So Nurse Lacey Eden confirmed for me and Representative Thurston at the time that we were discussing this bill, and Gail Ruzicka was also there, that a written statement from parents telling the school nurse when a child contracted a childhood illness was sufficient proof of natural immunity. So if your child has contracted one of these illnesses, then you write a handwritten note to the nurse and give it to the school nurse with your paperwork and just say, we're not getting these vaccines because we have immunity already. Titer tests. Titer tests show whether sufficient antibodies exist to provide immunity. Some people have sufficient titers without having had vaccines just because they've been around it. It's been in the air and they have had exposure, and so they develop the titers. Some people don't have sufficient titers even after they get vaccinated. I know of one person who got the MMR twice for her job because she didn't show the titers, and they didn't believe that, I guess, that she'd actually had the vaccine. So she had it a second time. And even if you get it a second time, if you didn't get titers from it the first time, you're not going to get it the second time. So I would recommend doing titer testing before you get vaccines. If those are your options, I would not do the vaccine first, because if you have immunity, what is considered immunity, then you don't need the vaccine and you don't want it. Okay, so the bottom line is, if you want your child to attend public school, you need to be in compliance with these conditions. So either you have the vaccines, you get an exemption for some or all of the vaccines, depending on which ones you want to get, or you show that you have natural immunity or that you have titers. Okay? And feel free to post questions on here if I'm not making things clear. Conditional enrollment. There's something called conditional enrollment. Again, we were led to believe that they were giving us a 21-day grace period starting at the first day of school, and that it would go for 21 days into school. Rereading what they've written and seeing what the school districts are doing, it turns out that you have 21 days from the time that you are notified that you are not in compliance. So once you've got the notice, like my friend who's kindergartner, they say is not in compliance, then you are on conditional enrollment for 21 days. And at the end of the 21 days, if you don't do one of the things, then the child will be suspended and not be able to attend school. Okay, how do you get an exemption? There are two ways to get an exemption. One is to do the education module, which I think a lot of us have seen and we're not really thrilled with, and that we were supposed to have been consulted on, and it was supposed to have been run by us and the legislature in time for it to be active, but it wasn't. So you can do the education module, or you can go to the health department. Now, an interesting new twist. The health departments, we have 2 of them now, and I'm sure there are more, who have said they're not doing exemptions at the health department. I called Utah County yesterday, and somebody else called Davis County, and someone called Tooele County, but I don't think that they heard back from Tooele County yet. So they say that they're not doing the exemptions. So now we're going to read from the code again. This again is the HB 308 enrolled copy, and we're going to look at lines 205 to 207. Hold on just a second. 205. Okay, this is in the definitions. Health official means an individual designated by a local health department from within the local health department to consult and counsel parents and licensed healthcare providers in accordance with subsection 53A 11302.52A. Okay, and then now let's skip to line 332. Line 332 says, 332 through 335. Each local health department shall designate, doesn't say may, it says shall designate one or more individuals from within the local health department as a health official to consult regarding the requirements of this part with parents upon the request of parents. So the health department shall have somebody there for you to talk to if you choose to go to the health department. They may charge you a fee, but they shall have somebody there to talk to you. So let's see if there's another reference. 346. Okay. A legally responsible individual may decline to take the online education module. This is in state code. And obtain a vaccination exemption form from a local health department if the individual requests and receives an in-person consultation at a local health department from a health official or a health official designee regarding the requirements of this part and pays any fees established under subsection 4B neither the department or any other person may charge a fee for the exemption form offered through the online education module. Okay, so they can't charge you a fee for the online education module. They can charge you a fee for coming into the health department, but they shall supply that option for you. Okay, the next question was about data collection. So whenever anyone receives a vaccine in Utah, the vaccination, the use of the vaccine is reported by the doctors to USIS, which is the Utah Statewide Immunization Information System. So the information is stored in that database. And I don't know who all can access it. I don't know if there are third parties that it's shared with. I'm sure it's shared with the health department. USIS claims that it's secure, but I married a programmer, and I know that nothing in a database is actually secure. So I was told that data on fully exempted children is not accessible. What was it he said? The information is there. It's kind of like a whitelist kind of thing. So there is data collected, but it doesn't matter whether you go to the health department or whether you do the online module. The data on who is exempted and what they're exempted for is the schools have it, the health departments have it, at least the local health departments and probably the state health department. And then if there are vaccinations involved, then USIS has that information. Except that when you want it to go get it, sometimes they don't. Okay, so the information is stored in a database. To opt your child out of the USIS database, you can opt out of the USIS database, whether you do the module or go into the health department. But the thing is, if you're opting totally out of vaccines, then theoretically you shouldn't be in the USIS database. But if you have ever done vaccines and you want to get out of that database, or you're going to do some but not all, then here's what you do. Get your pencils. You Google USIS, USIIS. So it's USIIS. Then you go to parents and individuals, and you go to withdrawal form, and you fill out the withdrawal form. And the withdrawal form itself has information on it, and I don't know where the information on the withdrawal forms goes. So the only way that I can think of to verify that your children's data has been removed would be to go look your child up. Now you have to be careful, because if you have used nicknames at the doctor's office, then you used the child's given name to remove them from the database, it's possible that their information is still in there because it's under a different name, and the computer won't recognize it. Because what happens is when you send in that information, the computer grabs information connected to that name and throws it out. So if you want to withdraw, you go to USIS, USIIS, and parents and individuals, and then withdrawal form, and you fill out and submit that form. And then if you want to go back and check after a little bit of time has passed, then you can see whether your child has been removed from that database. Okay, data collection with exemptions. Doesn't matter how you get the exemption. I think we already talked about that. Oh, no, we didn't. Okay, so now we're going to read HB 308 enrolled copy lines 367 to 375. Okay, 367 to 375. Okay, so an immunization record. This is the title is immunization record, part of the student's record. So it says each school shall request an immunization record for each student at the time the student enrolls in the school. But they may not charge a fee. The school may not charge a fee. I don't think there's a fee to withdraw, Jasmine. The school may not charge a fee related to receiving or reviewing an immunization record or a vaccination exemption form, shall retain an immunization form for each enrolled student as part of the student's permanent school record. So even if your information isn't in a database somewhere, it is in the school, and the school can share it. Let's see, lines 426 to 423. Each school shall maintain a current list. This is great stuff, guys. A current list of all enrolled students, noting each student, A, for whom the school has received a valid and complete immunization record, B, who is exempt from receiving a required vaccine, C, who is allowed to attend school under 53A 11306, and that would probably be people who have exemptions for medical or other reasons. And then 2, each school shall ensure that the list described in subsection 1, that is a current list of all enrolled students, noting each student with all of those details, specifically identifies each disease against which a student is not immunized. So we all know that they can't tell if a student's immunized what they really mean a student who is not vaccinated. Okay, so data collection with exemptions, that's how it's done. So there were a bunch of other questions. One was, how do they get away with doing whatever they want when they've said that they were going to do something else? Okay, so one of the ways that they do that is that agencies are allowed rule-making authority. So when you pass a law in the legislature, it has the structure for whatever it is, for say vaccination exemptions or vaccination policy. And the health department is the one that decides which vaccines are going to be required and how often they're going to be required, and a lot of other details. And so they can go through and make specific rules dealing with implementing the code. And that's one way that they get away with doing whatever they want. That one example of that is, had we been a little more experienced, we would have made them write into the law that all of the existing vaccine exemptions were grandfathered throughout the duration of the school career of the child. We would have written that in had we realized that what they say, their interpretation of whatever this is, can't be trusted. It has to actually be written in there. So now they just make the rule and say, well, no, everybody has to renew at these checkpoints. So that's one of the ways that it's called the Utah Administrative Code. Here it is right here, Utah Administrative Code. And you can find it online. And the rule that has to do with immunizations is Rule R, as in rule, 396-100. 396-100. And this is the immunization rule for students. Now, you'll note when you go to look at this that the rules listed here were effective as of May 1st, 2018. But if you go to the codification segue page, which you can click on if you go to this website and click on the codification segue page, that will tell you changes to code that have not yet been put into the Utah Administrative Code. So it's a process. They make the changes, they put them into the codification segue, and then they make their way into the actual code. So, where was I going? Oh, I was going to tell you that I went there. I went to the codification segue page, and it says that the administrative rules are not yet published, the ones that we're looking for. So, there you go. If you have a medical exemption from another state, just moved to Utah, do you have to do any of this? I am going to assume that you do, but I'm asking some doctors, and I'm not sure whose decision that is. I'm guessing that it would again be part of the rule-making authority about who gets to have exemptions and not I would like to say that medical exemptions are from other states are good, but I'm going to guess that they're not going to approve those. Can you get an exemption before school age? Yes, you can get an exemption before school age, but unless you're going to preschool, I don't know any reason why you would want to, because once you get it, you have 2 years until it's not good. And so I would just get it when you need it. Okay, if you change schools, preschools, childcare, do you have to get a new exemption? Let's go back again to lines 311 to 313. 311 to 313. Notwithstanding sections 4B and C, a vaccination exemption form obtained through completion of the online education module created in sections 2679 is valid for at least 2 years. Now, it doesn't say that one that you get at the health department is valid for at least 2 years. And I'm not sure if that was just an omission or if that was intentional. But interesting twist. I guess we can see what happens with that. It should still be good and for all of the other checkpoints. Can you get an exemption before school age if you change schools, preschools, daycare? Do you have to get it? Okay. How might this impact us in coming years? I'll just tell you right now that over and over again, I have been told by and heard them say, either directly to me or in hearings or to other people, that mandates are the optimum, the ideal. So they're being nice to us right now because not too many of us are being rebels. But if there are enough of us who decide that we're not going to get the vaccines, then they may just decide that they're going to push for mandates. So we need to be on our toes, watching for that. And then let's see. Okay, so not requiring the exemptions every single year was a compromise from their vantage point. Excuse me just a minute. Thank you. The dog was playing with a toy there. So if you're going to attend school, public, let's just summarize here. If you want to attend school, either public, private, preschool, or daycare in Utah, you need to either have titers done and show your immunity, have natural immunity, have an exemption, or you have to have the required vaccines. And you need to have the appropriate paperwork to show those things. Okay, Jasmine, the old exemptions should still be good. They're just not good for the entire school career. So yeah, they kept telling us that all the way through. They told us that. But the deal is that an exemption that is on file is good until you get to a checkpoint. So if your child is in 2nd grade, there isn't a checkpoint until 7th grade. So don't let them tell you that the exemption is not good. And if you look through the law and underline that part, and if you need help finding the part to underline, let me know. There is nothing in the law that says that we can't use the old exemptions until the next checkpoint. Okay? Let's see. So the summary. If you attend school, public, private, preschool, or daycare in Utah, you need to have titers, natural immunity, an exemption, or vaccines. If you're going to participate in any of these school activities as opposed to homeschooling, you should go to 53G in the Utah Code, 53G as in goose, -9-303, and read that code, and that will show you everything you need to know except for administrative code that has the rules that they haven't published yet. An exemption is good for 2 years from the time you do the module. So if you get an exemption for kindergarten and then you move, the exemption should be good for 2 years still. And also we read in the code that the exemptions should be good at the new school until the checkpoint. Also, we need to go back and reread that. Okay, data is collected whether you vaccinate or not. It's just different data stored in different locations. You should learn how to participate in the legislative process. Keep track of rules made by the Utah Department of Health when you can find them. Please don't let people manipulate you because you don't know the law. Print it out and carry it with you whenever you go to the school and know what it says. And then educate before you vaccinate. If you're somebody who has not decided already that you're not going to vaccinate, or that you know which vaccines you do and do not want, I would recommend that you go to our website, yourhealthfreedom.org, watch our new video that we just posted on Sunday and has over 10,000 views. And then watch for our upcoming symposium, which will be in November. Also, you can go, we have links to these on the website under resources, but you can go to medscienceresearch.com to find studies on vaccinations, on all vaccinations, listed in alphabetical order. So you can search in alphabetical order. And you can also go to N as in Nancy, V as in Victor, I, C as in cat.org, National Vaccine Information Center.org. Look at the 8 questions that you should ask before you vaccinate. Okay, that is what I have. Is there anything that is not clear? We'll talk about the module another time. We've spent a lot of time talking about the module, and I have asked people if they could please submit questions or comments and studies on things that were covered in the module. If you have not seen the module and you want to have the screenshots that I have, feel free to message me to get the screenshots. I'll need your email for that. And I guess that's about it. If there are other questions, I'll wait just a second to see if there are other questions. Okay, I would like to ask you to please share this far and wide, because the schools always tell people one thing and the law says another thing. For example, the schools rarely acknowledge that exemptions are even a possibility to people who don't know. And they are telling us that we need new forms when the law doesn't say anything to that effect. So they try to just kind of gloss over things because it just makes it easier. Where do you go to find the module? It should be posted on the Utah Department of Health website. I can look and see if it's posted there. Has anybody found the module? I got it straight from the health department and went through it. I just filled it in with information that was not accurate because I don't have anyone who needs an exemption. And I did have permission to go through and view it. So let me just look here. I'm going to look up Utah Department of Health. Let's see, vaccination education module. I'm not seeing it just pop up there. Online immunization education module. So you can just Google online immunization education module. It's at Immunize Utah. There's information about the module, what to do before you begin. So yeah, just go to immunize-utah.org or Google the online immunization module for Utah. All right. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more questions. So I guess I'm going to just end this for now. If you have other questions, feel free to post them in the thread. I'm still waiting to hear on whether somebody who has an out-of-state exemption, medical exemption, can use it here. And that would be good information to have. Okay, well, you are welcome. I hope that that helped, and let me know if you have further questions, and I will find answers. Thanks.